Ready?
I am ready.
Good, because we just went live.
All right, never mind, I'm not ready.
Oh, wait, we need to cancel this. Sorry.
Retreat.
Just wait for our participants to come flooding in. Hope everybody is having
No
a
pushing,
wonderful
shoving.
day.
There's plenty of space.
Orderly line, please.
Everybody come in slowly. Keep your distance.
Oh, yeah, keep the 6 feet. Hope you're all wearing your masks and so on and so forth.
Yep. We have ours on.
We do.
We're distanced.
We are. Look at us. I think we have got all of our participants.
I think we do.
In for the moment, just about. And hello, everybody, on this lovely September day.
October.
October.
It is.
I forgot about that. Hello, everybody, on this lovely October day, October the 1st, Halloween month.
I just put up a bunch of Halloween decorations last night for my kids. I surprised them.
Really?
An 8-foot tall inflatable Frankenstein. I also put a tombstone up, and then I had 2 zombie arms that you put in the ground, so it looked like it was coming out of the ground. Anyways,
you've done a lot more than I have. I'm impressed. Even though Halloween is my favorite holiday.
Yeah.
So there you go. I need to put some more effort in. But yeah, welcome to Tech Talk Live. We are live, and we're going to be talking about tech. We are your #1 destination for Nokia. Everything Nokia, we're there, and Windows Phone. We've branched out into Windows Phone recently.
I think we're a little behind in time.
Corey, I was on Netscape the other day. Oh, hold on. Gail says that we're not getting any audio.
Okay.
Can anybody else hear us? Gail says she cannot hear us.
We should be good.
If anybody else can hear us, then please let us know. Somebody else has said something. Some people are saying something in the chat. I can hear you. I can. Okay. It seems to be a problem for Gail.
Gail, you do need to connect.
She can't hear us.
Oh, sorry. I'll type it in the chat while you do the intro. Thanks for that. And I am the smart one of the bunch.
So Corey, I was on Netscape the other day, and I was reading about a company called Apple. You ever heard of them?
I have.
Okay. Well, this is a first for me. Apparently, they have a product called an iPhone.
Oh, an
I
iPhone.
think that's how you say it. iPhone, yeah. And apparently, it's pretty good. So I thought today we could take a look at that and see what it's like for people with a visual impairment. Let's see. We just recently updated to iOS 14, and that's the latest version of the Apple operating system. But we're not necessarily going to be talking specifically about that. This is more of just a general overview of the accessibility options for vision built into the iPhone, and in fact iPad, because that's what I'm going to be doing the demo on. And there's quite a few accessibility features built in, and they're kind of scattered all over the place. So this is going to be basically an introduction on how to get to them and what they do.
May I well, no, you keep going.
Do you have a family member?
That might have been. I do. That potentially could be.
Yes. Somebody just raised their hand, and I noticed they were called Belinda Ballard.
We'll see.
Okay. Do you mean like this could be like a secret family member that you didn't know that you had?
Could be. You just never know. You know, when you become famous, suddenly all of these family members come out of the woodwork.
We all want a piece of the pie. I think Belinda may have raised her hand, which is why I said something there. So Belinda, do you?
That is my cousin. She just said I have a cousin, Corey Ballard. That's me.
There you go. It must, unless it's a different Corey Ballard.
That would be weird.
That would be a very strange turn of events.
Before we dive too far in, if you don't mind, let's get the opening code.
We should.
So we don't forget.
Gail again has told us that she can't hear, but I'm not sure what to do about
that. I did put in the chat you need to click the computer button. Other than that, I'm not sure what else.
Button?
Yeah, the join computer.
Join a computer audio. Okay.
So so for these sessions do count for ACVREP credits if you need them. Today's opening code is Pickles. Again, you will give more information at the end on how to submit for your ACVREP credits. You'll also receive an email tomorrow with links and everything you need as well. But again, today's opening code is pickles, and we'll put that in the chat. I'll do it in just a moment while Luke continues his intro.
So what was I saying? Oh yeah, accessibility. So we're going to take a look at the iPad, and the iPhone is obviously going to be pretty similar, and just get an idea of what types of things are available there. So Corey, maybe you could do the honors and hit the camera button if you get a chance to do that.
I'd love to.
I like your enthusiasm.
Give me a second here. I'm gonna run on over to the video. And you want the cam link. There you go.
Gracias. Okay, so here we are looking at our nice iPad screen. This is an iPad Pro, I think, with a 12.9-inch screen. So let's get started here. We're gonna go into our, well, let's have a think, how should we do this? Yeah, let's go into our settings first of all, because this is where we're gonna find most of the accessibility features. So settings is a cogwheel type of icon, and I've got it here on my screen. So let's go ahead and tap that. And now we are into our settings menu. Now, hopefully everybody can read the things or see the things to some extent on the screen here. If anybody's got any questions as we go, then please feel free to ask. So on the left, we have a list of all the different settings that we're able to change. And there's quite a few of them, but we're not necessarily interested in all of these. We're going to go ahead and start off by looking at the display and brightness area. So I'll tap on display and brightness, and on the right here, we're going to have the options that we can change for display and brightness. Brightness is pretty self-explanatory. If you do suffer from glare, then you might find it helpful to turn down the brightness, and that's just based on a slider. But we also have two options for appearance up at the top here. We have a light theme and a dark theme, similar to what we might get on a desktop computer. The light theme is what the standard is, but the dark theme I actually probably prefer because it's going to change all the whites to blacks and all the blacks to whites. This is a lot less glary. And so if you do suffer from glare, then this is probably the best thing to try, the first thing that you might want to try out. And we can easily switch back, obviously, to the light theme if we want to. So that's a really nice place to start, just getting the contrast how you would want it. I should say, by the way, I'm going to be mostly talking about the low vision accessibility options. Corey's going to talk about some of the accessibility for people who are blind. Let's scroll down here a little bit further. We have some other things as well, which we're not as interested in. But when we get down to the bottom here, there's some things which are pretty useful. So we have text size, and that's going to allow us to change the size of the text with a slider. So here's the slider. Now, this can sometimes, it doesn't work everywhere. It's only on apps that support dynamic type. So that is going to be kind of across the the iPad's operating system. But if you download, you know, like a solitaire game or something like that, it's probably not going to affect things on that side. So that's worth bearing in mind. And let's see what happens if we increase the slider. And hopefully you're able to tell that all of our text has got a lot larger, which is going to be super useful, especially when it comes to navigating the menus. Really does make things a lot easier. And obviously, if we slide to the left, it's going to make things smaller again. So that's a very nice feature to have. Let's go back out to our menu. We also have underneath the text size option, we have the bold text option. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to make all the text real bold, which hopefully will make it stand out. So there's a switch that we can press on the right that's going to go ahead and turn that on. Not sure how well that translates across through the camera, but it does make quite a big difference when I'm looking at it here. So again, just increasing contrast, making things easier to see. I'll leave that turned on for the moment. At the bottom here is the final thing I want to look at for display and brightness. And this is where we have an option to change the display zoom. And so if I go ahead and tap here, now we have two options, standard or zoomed. I have it set to standard. Let's set it to zoomed. What's going to happen is everything is going to get bigger. I do have to hit the set button. I think the iPad needs to restart here. So we'll just give it a second. When it does restart, we're going to see everything has got bigger. So now, like, all of these menus are like super large because not only have we got the screen zoom going on, but we also have got the increased text size going on. So all of this stuff is super large. The the little kind of icon tray at the bottom here is much larger than it was before. And it's kind of hard to do this swipe when your iPad's in a stand. There we go. We got there. And yeah, the icons are larger as well. So it's just a generalized zoom. I actually have this set to zoom on my phone because, you know, phones have got smaller screens anyway. And so it makes them even more difficult to access. So, you know, I'm a sighted person, but I still enjoy using the zoom view. For the moment, though, on the iPad here, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off just because I don't think we need it right now. Let's hit standard. We're going to just go ahead and that will reset the iPad, and then it's going to come back on and we'll be in the standard view. At least I hope it comes back on. If it doesn't, that'll be kind of awkward.
Thanks for joining us today, everybody.
All right, so that's display and brightness. A lot of useful settings in there. It's a good place to start. And next, we're going to go to the home screen and the dock. I actually, full disclosure, I just noticed this as I was getting ready for this this event today. There is an option here where we can increase the size of the apps on the home screen, and I assume this is here on the phone as well. So we can select between more, where obviously they're going to be smaller, or bigger, where obviously they're going to be bigger. So let's go ahead and we'll see if we can get out to the home screen. This is what they look like at the moment on the kind of the small setting or the regular setting or whatever it is. Let's go into the settings here. We'll set this to bigger, and then let's see if we can. There we go. And now we have the same icons, but all of them are larger, and obviously they're taking up more space, and also they are. There's going to be less on the screen.
So is it actually changing the layout then of the kind of the app grid,
I mean,
or do you have to pan? Is there
yeah,
stuff off?
No, potentially. I mean, it kind of changes the layout in the sense that the apps are still in the same order, but if you had 30 apps on the page, but now you've made them larger and you can only fit 20 on the page, obviously those 10 are going to get pushed over to the next page.
Okay, so it's automatically pushing them to page 2. Got it.
So I mean, it might be that you have to scroll through more pages to find what you want. But it depends obviously on how many apps you've got. So on the iPad here, we've got enough that we can fit them all just on the one page at the larger size, which is kind of nice. And also to go along with that, what I would recommend, if we go down to wallpaper and open up that. We can choose different wallpapers. Now, in general, people with vision loss were looking for, you know, good contrast. And one way to do that is to set up your wallpaper so that it's just one consistent color. So rather than, at the moment, I mean, I guess it's not too bad. We have this kind of red, but there's some varying kind of degrees of color. There's some color splashes and stuff going on. And it might not be the best, you know, for our vision and our perception. So what we can do, if we go to choose a new wallpaper, and we have either photos that we can choose from, or we can choose from pre-built dynamic wallpapers, which are wallpapers that move, or we can choose from still wallpapers. Now I'm going to go to still. These are just going to be still images. And one of the options we have here is just a solid black background. There may be a solid white as well, is there? No, there's not. So solid black background. Let's go ahead and set that one. So we've chosen that one. I'm going to set it here. Okay, now if we go back out to our home screen here, the background is a solid black and the apps are sat on top of that with their white text. So in terms of contrast, this is actually looking really good now. Obviously, through the camera that you guys are watching this on, you lose some of the resolution. So, you know, let me just say it looks much better in real life than it does kind of through the camera. Everything pops really nicely, especially because the screens on the Apple devices are so good. You get really good color reproduction. So, like the black background is super black, and you know the apps really pop against that background. So I'm going to leave that like that for now. Why not? Now let's jump back into our menu here. And over on the left-hand side now, we're going to go to accessibility. And this is where obviously a lot of our options are going to be. So accessibility is the area where all of the features which are designed specifically for people with disabilities, both visual and otherwise, are going to be located. And there's a lot of good stuff for us to explore in here. So let's go ahead and jump into our accessibility. And we'll just scroll through the menu here. Now we have a heading that's called Vision at the top, and underneath there are all the items specifically related to vision. And then we have a section for physical and motor. So those are obviously going to be for different types of disabilities. Then we have hearing, and then we've got some general options. And one of those general options is the accessibility shortcut, which we'll be taking a look at. But for the most part, the things that we want are obviously going to be underneath this vision section here. Now, the first thing that we see is Voiceover. And Voiceover is the screen reader which is built into the iPad. And it allows a person who's completely blind to access the iPad or the iPhone and to basically everything. Corey, you are a Voiceover user?
I am, that is correct.
And how do you find it as a screen reader?
It's okay. No, it is hands down, in my opinion, it is the best screen reader on the mobile platforms.
Nice. And that's not to say it's perfect. I think
no, absolutely not.
There's always frustrations when Apple do an update and things have a tendency to stop working with Voiceover, is the impression that I get. Yeah,
there's bugs, some things get fixed, some things break. And we'll dive into Voiceover in just a bit.
Yeah, so Corey's going to be talking about Voiceover in a little bit, and as a regular Voiceover user, he has a very good perspective on the use of that. But let's take a look at the moment for the next option, which is Zoom. And it's a little confusing, I think, because we have both Zoom and Magnifier. And you might think to yourself, well, okay, well, what's the difference between Zoom and Magnifier? Surely we're zooming or magnifying with both of those. And the difference is the zoom is a screen zoom. It's going to make anything on the screen of your device larger. We're going to take a look at that in just a second. The magnifier is more like a magnifying glass. It's using the camera of your device to allow you to zoom in on things outside of your device. And we're going to take a look at that in a second as well. But let's go to Zoom for the moment. Somebody has put a question in the chat there. I just noticed asking where these options are found. So I think, Corey will put it in the chat, Giovanna, but it's once you go into the settings menu, they're under accessibility. So in the settings menu, you would find accessibility on the left-hand side, press on that, and then you would see these different accessibility options for vision. So let's take a look at Zoom. And here we have the different options for Zoom. There's quite a few of them, but one of the most important is going to be turning Zoom on. So we have a switch over on the right-hand side that we can tap to turn Zoom on. Now, when Zoom is turned on, that doesn't mean that we're always zoomed. It just means that when we want to zoom, we are able to use the gesture to make us zoom. And the gesture is 3 fingers double tap. And so we take our 3 fingers, we double tap on the screen, and it's going to zoom in. Now, whenever we zoom, the field of view is restricted, so we don't see the entire screen anymore. And so to pan around, we can just take our 3 fingers and move them over the screen, and it's going to go ahead and pan around for us. And then we take the 3 fingers and double tap again, and it's going to zoom out. There are actually instructions written on, on the iPad screen when you're looking at Zoom in the accessibility options. So that's pretty nice to give you a reminder of how that works. Now, the tricky part of this, I think, is changing the magnification level. And so this gesture people can struggle with. It's a bit of a weird one. So we've got the 3-finger double tap to zoom in, 3-finger double tap to zoom out. To change the magnification level, 3-finger double tap. On the second tap, we leave the fingers on the screen, and then we can push them upward to make it larger or downward to make it smaller. I'm going to try and demonstrate here. So double tap and then push up, and it's going to get larger and larger and larger. Pull down, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and so on and so forth. And the iPad will remember the magnification level that you last kind of went to. So if I zoom out now, 3-finger double tap, we're back to regular size. Now, when I zoom in again, it's going to remember the last magnification level that I had it on. And so you can kind of set and forget to some extent, but it is good to know how to make things larger or smaller, because depending on what you're trying to magnify, the text will be different sizes. So you'll want to be able to change the magnification level. And the great thing about this zoom is it works anywhere. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, I could zoom like that, but why would I bother? Because I can do my two-finger kind of reverse pinch and pinch to zoom in and out. And yes, you can use that in a lot of places. For example, in an internet browser to make things larger, but that doesn't work anywhere. So on the home screen, for example, if I can get the hang of doing that, oh, come on, so difficult. There we go. We have the iPad in the stand, and it makes it really difficult to swipe from the bottom of the screen. Anyway, so here we are on the home screen now. I tried to do my reverse pinch gesture, and it doesn't do what I want at all. It's just flipping through pages because it thinks I'm trying to do a one-finger flick. But I can use my my zoom gesture here, 3 fingers, double tap, and in we zoom. And now we can use our 3 fingers on the screen to pan around. 3-finger double tap and zoom out. So let's try that again. There we go. So that works anywhere, which is really neat. You can zoom in and out wherever you want. And whatever app you're using, whatever you're trying to do, you're always going to have that zoom feature available. I will say probably the biggest thing to get used to with the zoom is just panning around. Number one, you've got to remember to use 3 fingers to pan. And number 2, it can be kind of slow going. So just have a bit of patience, and you'll soon kind of build up your skills with that. Now that was full screen zoom. Full screen zoom meaning that everything was magnified at the same time. But we can set it to window zoom instead. And with window zoom, so let's go ahead and turn on our magnifier. We have this window instead of the whole screen magnifying. We have just this magnifying window that we can move around. So it's kind of like holding a magnifying glass up to the screen. The problem with this is in order to move this window around, there's a small area at the bottom center that we have to put our finger on. And that will then allow us to kind of drag around this magnifying glass. But it's kind of hard to get your finger into the right area to move it around. So I tend not to really like the window zoom for that reason. But obviously you can play around with it and see what works for you. So that's one way that we can use the zoom feature. But as I said, some people struggle with using the zoom gesture, so the 3-finger double tap. It can be tricky for some people. And so there is another way that we're able to use the zoom feature, and that's with the zoom controller. And I'm a big fan of this zoom controller. I think it's pretty good. So let's go into here, and we have an option at the top to show the controller, which is currently turned off. Let's turn that on. I'll tap on the switch, and now this circle has appeared in the bottom right of the iPad screen. This circle can be moved anywhere that we want, so we can get it set up wherever is most convenient. I have a tendency to put it in the bottom right personally. And this is the zoom controller, this circle. First thing you want to do is choose the color and the opacity that you want to set it at, by which I mean color is pretty straightforward. We can choose different colors for it. So blues, oranges, yellows, whatever. I like to set it to red because I think red tends to pop against white or black as well. And then also the opacity means when we're not using it, so if I haven't touched it for a few seconds, do I want it to go opaque so that I can see through it? Now, to my mind, if I have a visual impairment, I don't want it to go opaque because then I might not be able to see it very well. It's a bit counterintuitive, I think, because if you set the idle opacity to 100%, then it will never go opaque, so it will always stay, nice and clear. If I set it to anything below 100%, when I'm not using it, it's going to be a lot more see-through, and that can be more difficult then. So I like to set that to 100%, so it's always visible whenever I need to use it. I should be able to find it. So that's setting up the zoom controller, but what does it actually do? Well, what it does is it gives us access to zooming without having to use that 3-finger gesture. And so it is a lot easier for a lot of people to use the controller as their main magnification method. So we can actually set it up however we want. And we can set up actions for a single tap on it, a double tap on it, or a triple tap on it. So we can choose what a single tap will do if we just tap on the controller once, what a double tap will do if we tap on the controller twice, and a triple tap if we tap on it 3 times. To change those, in the controller actions here, we can just go ahead and press on single tap, and then we'll have a list of things that we can set up on the single tap, and the same for the double tap and the triple tap. I have it set at the moment, a single tap will zoom in and out, a double tap will do speak on touch, and a triple tap will show the menu. Let's take a look at how that's going to work. So single tap is zoom in and out. Tap it once, we've zoomed in. So I didn't need to use 3 fingers and do a double tap, just 1 finger, and we zoomed in. And another 1 finger tap on it will zoom us out. That's super easy, I think. Now, we can tap it once to zoom in, and then use 3 fingers to pan around if we want. There we go. So we can use 3 fingers on the screen. It's a bit of a pain how you still have to use 3 fingers to pan, but there we are. So we can do that, but we can also go ahead and we can tap. Let's see if we can get what's going on here. There we go. So now, we can kind of put our finger on the controller and start to move our finger around on top of the controller. And as we move our finger around, it will pan. So we're just using 1 finger now to pan around. It's a bit of a weird gesture, because if you leave your finger on the controller for too long, it'll think you want to move the controller. But if you put your finger on the controller and just start to move your finger straight away, then it will know that you want to pan. So it takes a bit of getting used to kind of that quirk. But here I am now just panning around that magnified screen, just using 1 finger, moving it up, down, left and right to pan around. And for a lot of the time, that's going to be easier than trying to use 3 fingers on the screen. A nice little option we have there. Now I've got the double tap set up to speak on touch, and speak on touch is a super useful feature, which will read aloud whatever we touch on. So let's do a double tap on the controller here. And the controller itself, it turns into a little pointing finger on a hand. So we know that we're in speaking touch mode. And now we can just touch anywhere that there's text, and it's going to read it aloud to us. Double tap, speak on touch. And there we go. So I tapped on double tap, speak on touch, and it was read aloud to us. Really nice feature that I like a lot. It will read whichever area you've tapped on and then stop reading. So if I wanted to read another area now, I would have to double tap on the controller again to go into speak on touch mode, and then tap on what I want to triple tap, show menu, and so on and so forth. So if you have an email, for example, with multiple paragraphs, you do have to touch on each paragraph individually and to read the entire thing. So in that sense, it's a little bit cumbersome.
It does do the whole paragraph versus line. You don't have to do it for each line.
Yeah, so it will read an entire paragraph, and it's just so easy to do, because you can press exactly where you want it to read, and it's going to read the area. So websites, emails, text messages, icons on the home screen, wherever there's text, you can use this to read aloud. So big fan of that feature. And then finally, the triple tap is going to open a menu. And this menu gives us access to some things. So here we can zoom in and out from the menu. So even without just doing the single tap on the controller, we can zoom in and out directly from the menu here if we want to. Oops, let me do the triple tap to open the menu again. We can also change the magnifier, whether it's the lens mode or the docked mode or the full screen. We can also choose color filters. So we could choose to invert the colors if we wanted to. And, now we've got this nice white on black menu instead of black on white, which is pretty sweet. Let's go ahead. And there's other options for colors as well. And then we also, at the bottom here, we have a slider. And this is where this menu is particularly useful, because instead of doing that 3-finger double tap and then pushing up to make things larger or pulling down to make them smaller, right here from the controller menu, we can use a slider instead to choose the level of magnification. And again, once we've got it set to the level that we want, if we go ahead and tap on the controller now, so remember our single tap is zooming in and out, it's going to remember the level that we had the magnification set to. So again, it's got a memory for that. And so once we've set it here in our controller menu, then it's going to go ahead and remember that whenever we turn on and off the magnifier. So all in all, I mean, that's a pretty good, well-featured magnifier. There's a few things to learn, as always, but, it's got a lot of capabilities, and I think the controller is generally the way to go, with the proviso that, as far as I know, you can't change the size of the controller. And so obviously, if it's too small for you to see, then it's not going to be the way to go, and you're going to have to use the 3 fingers. But if you are able to see that controller, I think it makes a lot of the functionality more accessible and easier to use. Anything to say about that, Corey?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I want to give Corey enough time, so I'm going to go fairly quickly through some.
I was just going to say, and you could always take your time. If we need to do our next session just on voiceover, we can always do that.
That's
I mean,
true.
let's, you know, let's.
Maybe if people want to put in the chat whether they want to keep on kind of going into the low vision stuff, or whether they're more interested in getting an idea of voiceover.
Because we could always split it into two sessions if need be.
So anybody, feel free to type in the chat what your preferences are while I start to talk about the next option here. And so we're going to now take a look at the magnifier. So as I said before, the zoom is screen zoom. That's what we were just looking at. It's magnifying things on the iPad screen itself. The magnifier is going to be magnifying things outside of the iPad. So let's check it out here. By default, when we turn on the magnifier, it's going to be set to a triple tap on the power button, I guess. Or what do you call that button? The home button?
Which one?
The one on the top of there.
I call it the lock or power/lock button.
Power button. So
we're getting majority votes are two separate sessions.
Okay, great.
Let's take your time on this, and then
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so so by default it's going to be set to a triple click. Now, if you have an older iPhone, this is going to be your home button, this circular button on the front of your phone. Anybody iPhone 10 or later, it's going to be the power button or the lock button instead. So bear that in mind. It's a bit confusing now with iPhones because they kind of changed the design. But anyway, ours is a newer iPad Pro. So we're going to be using the power button here. Now, I will say with iOS 14, the latest version of iOS, so if you've updated your device, then you should have iOS 14. With that, they actually have added a magnifier shortcut to your list of apps. And so now you don't have to do the triple tap anymore. There's a separate app that will take you into the magnifier. And Corey, you were saying that you prefer that earlier on, right?
The magnifier. Yeah. So we haven't yet touched on the accessibility shortcut, but when you because it used to use the accessibility shortcut key. If you had more than one there, then it would pop up a menu. And so where it got confusing, especially if you were a voiceover user and wanted your triple click home, but also had magnifier on because you were demoing, it was hard to turn it back on there.
Yeah, totally. So let's just talk about that shortcut quickly. So we have something called an accessibility shortcut. In the accessibility menu, it's right at the bottom. It says accessibility shortcut. And we can, if we tap on there, we can select what options are available if we triple press on the power lock button or the home button on the earlier iPhones. And magnifier is by default available there, but we might not want it to be set up for that. So for example, let's say that we want to be able to invert colors. Okay. So now I've set that up on my accessibility shortcut, which means, and I also have the magnifier set up on my accessibility shortcut. So now if I do my accessibility shortcut, which is going to be a triple press on the power button, 1, 2, 3, because I've got more than one option set up to my shortcut, I now have to choose from a list that pops up which of those things I'm trying to do by triple tapping the power button. Do I want to do the smart invert or do I want to open the magnifier? In this case, I want to do the smart invert. I'll tap on it. Everything's going to be inverted. Okay. But that's a bit of a pain because it's like an extra step I have to go through now. It's like I have to do the triple press, but now I also have to select something specific from the menu that I want to do. Now, the nice thing about this is we can set up a number of different options that are easily accessible by triple pressing the home button. But it might be that you don't need all those options. All you want to be able to do is smart invert. So what we can do now, which is nice, we can turn off the magnifier from the accessibility shortcut. So now I just have the smart invert set to the accessibility shortcut. So now if I triple press with the power button, 1, 2, 3, it's just going to automatically turn off and turn on the smart invert because that's the only thing that we have set to the accessibility shortcut. So before iOS 14, we did not have the ability to do that. the magnifier, or at least could we turn off the magnifier from the shortcut? Because that was the only way to get into it before, right?
The only way to get into Magnifier was the
We got
triple press.
Yeah, so before you didn't have an option, like you had to have the magnifier set to the triple press. Now we have an option because there's an app on the home screen. And so that is nice, especially for voiceover users. Like they don't need the magnifier, you know. So if they just have voiceover set to come on and off with the triple press, that's going to be much better.
And also being an app on the home screen, you can use Siri and just launch it by voice if need be as well.
Yes, yeah. Which you can also do with voiceover, to be fair. So
yeah,
there's always multiple ways to do things. Anyway, so let's go ahead and open up our magnifier. And they have also changed the interface for the magnifier. So we have some new options which we didn't have before. Those are located in this control panel. Now, at the moment, I have some baking soda placed behind my iPad camera, and that's what we're looking at on the screen here. So, basic controls, we have a reverse pinch to zoom in, and a pinch to, wait, did I get that right? Reverse pinch, yeah, to zoom in, and pinch to zoom out. You'll be already familiar with those gestures. If you prefer, there is a magnification slider we can use. Slide it to the right to zoom in, to the left to zoom out. I have to say the camera on this iPad Pro is pretty crazy, really good quality image. So it's definitely a feasible electronic magnification device, but obviously with the iPad being so large, it does make it hard to kind of hold in place as you're trying to use it. So that's the downside. Now underneath the slider for the magnification settings, we have 4 icons. The first one is for brightness. If I press on that, we're going to get a second slider underneath the magnification slider, which will allow us to change the brightness. Obviously, slide to the left for dimmer, to the right for brighter. The second little icon is for contrast. So again, if we press it, we get a slider up, and now we can change the contrast, make the colors pop more or less, depending on what looks best to us. The third option is for alternate color modes for false colors. So if I press on that, I get now a sliding carousel of different color options. Now these are going to look bad on this baking soda because they're designed for when you're reading printed text, right? And you might want that printed text to be in black and white. You might want it to, I don't know why anybody would want that actually, black on red. That's horrible. Or red on black, I'm not sure, it's awful. Let's go to the next one. Yellows, yeah, some people like yellows and blacks, and so on and so forth. We've got a bunch of inverted colors. So there's a lot of different color options. Now, those of you who own handheld or desktop electronic magnifiers are already going to be really familiar with stuff like this. That's essentially what we have here. Let's go back to regular color. And finally, we have a torch icon, and that's going to turn on and off the device's flashlight. So this interface has got easier to use. Like they've changed the way that it looks compared to the old magnifier interface. I like it a lot more now. If we go into the settings, there's an icon at the bottom left we can go into the settings with. There's some cool things we can do here, like we could turn off any of these secondary controls, the brightness, contrast, filters, or flashlight, if we don't want them to be there cluttering up the screen because we don't use them. We can set them, any of these, to be always visible. So you would always get, for example, like a zoom slider and a contrast slider if you wanted. You could set it up so that those sliders are always visible. Yeah, I think that's everything that we can do in that menu. So just gives you a bit of customizability depending on what's most important for you when you're using the magnifier. And the final thing in the magnifier here is going to be the ability for us to take pictures of things without having to save them to our camera roll. So we can take pictures which stay specifically within like the magnifier app. And when we leave the magnifier app, those pictures disappear. So you're not taking up room basically on your phone's camera roll. So to do that, we can press an icon in the bottom right, and it's going to show us a number. And the number is going to be how many pictures we have taken. So now if I press the big circular plus button in the bottom center, it's going to start to take pictures. That number is going to change, 1, 2, so on and so forth. It will tell us how many pictures we've got. To see those pictures, we can just tap where that number is, and it's going to bring up a list of those pictures. So at the moment, we're looking at the first picture. Now, all of my pictures are exactly the same, so it won't be easy to tell when I'm switching between them, but here's the first one. This is the second one. And here's the third one. Now, obviously, when we have a picture, we can then still use our controls for magnification, for changing the colors, for changing the brightness, for changing the contrast. And again, those of you with desktop or handheld CCTVs are going to be very familiar with this functionality. The nice thing about taking a picture rather than doing a live magnified image, when we're doing a live magnified image, we have to hold our device nice and still. If you imagine like you're trying to read something, right? You've got to hold your device real still and be real smooth as you move it over the sentences that you're trying to read. It can be really difficult to be steady enough to get a good result with that. So instead, we could take a picture of the text. And when we have a picture of the text, then we can zoom in on the picture and just pan around the picture just by moving our finger across the screen. And that's going to make it much easier for us. It'll be a lot more stable and we'll probably be a lot more successful. And yeah, so I would recommend checking out this Magnifier app, even if you've used it in the past. If you've got iOS 14, as I said, now it's got all these, the different stuff going on. And I think it's a lot more fully featured and easier to use now. So, yep, definitely a fan of that one.
Just a couple of little questions here. Just one person mentioned that we must have a fancier iPad because theirs doesn't have all these features. Two things to that. Number one, age of your iPad can determine not only what iOS version it's capable of running, but even sometimes certain features will be disabled. So you may even have iOS 14, but if it's a device that supports iOS 14 but doesn't support a specific feature, you may see those disabled. So our iPad is maybe about 1.5 to 2 years old and has the latest version of iOS 14. So that's why you may see some discrepancy on what features are available on yours compared to what we have. Another one about, are these features available on the iPhone 10 and above? Yes, again, just make sure that you update to iOS 14 to see all of the features that we're talking about today.
Do you know what phones are compatible with the iOS 14? I have an 8, and that one was.
Yep.
Can you do a 7?
Great. 8. I know 8 and up for sure.
Yeah.
I think 7 still might be doing iOS 14. I'll look in just a moment.
Okay.
That might have been the cutoff, but I'll triple check and throw it in so everybody has the answer for that. We had a question here from Giovanna asking, how did you get that black box on the screen? I'm not sure which black box. It was just recently it came in.
Black box.
What were you just doing?
There is maybe she's talking about the one in the Magnifier app. That's what got added in the iOS 14 update.
Okay.
So if you update your phone or tablet to iOS 14, this is what your magnifier will look like now. If that's not what you're talking about, feel free to ask, put something more specific in the chat or whatever.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Nope, we're good for now.
Okay.
And we our buddy Jason had a little comment too, just saying iOS 14 for some of these features.
Okay. Yes.
But I'd had to give Jason a shout out since he joins us pretty much everyone.
Somebody here has said we generally recommend that you wait to update from 13 to 14 for at least a month, maybe even 2 months, so they can work out the bugs and developers have a chance to update their apps.
That is a good recommendation, especially if you rely on your device for school or for work. Anytime it's first released, especially in the 0.01s, the 0.02, those kind of releases are going to have a little bit more bugs. And yes, by the time maybe a month or so, once 14.1 comes out, you're going to be a little bit safer to do it.
Yeah. That being said, I haven't noticed any glaring issues yet with 14.
Not from a low vision. No,
yeah.
We'll talk about next 2 weeks on our next Tech Talk. We will talk about VoiceOver.
Yes.
And we'll talk. There are some bugs in iOS 14, none that we call showstoppers, where you can't actually use the device or anything like that. But there are just a few notable bugs with VoiceOver in iOS 14.
Okay. Jason has also said that the feature box in the magnification app can also be expanded and unexpanded using the arrow up and down. So if you want to get it out of the way of the thing that you're trying to look at with the, with the magnifier, then you can get that out of the way. So thank you for that. All right, where were we? Let's go back to accessibility here. So display and text size. We already looked at adjusting the text size in our display options over on the left here. There are some other things that we can turn on and off in here. We have smart invert, which will invert all the colors. Now, we already looked at that in relation to our magnifier app and, using the zoom controller and having access to invert there. So yeah, but you can set, there's multiple ways to do things. So we can turn on smart invert here if we want. Gives us a real nice white on black. Now, the clever thing about smart invert versus classic invert, smart invert figures out what it should change and what it shouldn't change. So if you're looking at a picture, it won't change the color of the picture, right? The classic invert just inverts everything. So when you look at a picture, all the colors of the picture are inverted and things look absolutely crazy sometimes. I would generally recommend going for smart invert. It's a little bit better. We also here can turn on larger text. So earlier on, I showed this slider for changing type size, and that's available both in the accessibility settings and also in the display settings. But we can also turn on larger accessibility sizes in accessibility. So that basically means that we can make the text even larger when that's turned on. And so that's definitely something worth exploring. We had something from Douglas saying that the audio output is ranging from quiet to extra loud. So I do apologize about that, Douglas. I'm not quite sure why. If anybody else is having that problem, let us know so that we can try and sort it out before the next session. Okay, let's see what else we have here. We're kind of running out of time a little bit, so I guess I'm going to have to go through some of this stuff fairly quickly. But there's definitely one other thing that I wanted to look at here. Belinda says she's also having trouble with the audio output. We'll have a look at that before the next session, so apologies. But we can also, under accessibility, there's an option that says spoken content. And spoken content is another way that we can get the iPad to read to us. In general, I think that this is actually better for people who have print disabilities, for example, dyslexia, and I'll show you why. But it does have a really nice feature, which I do like for vision loss as well. So let's go into spoken content here. And we have a few different options. First of all, speak selection. We can highlight text and then have it read aloud to us. Now, this option is also available on Mac computers, so it's pretty similar. Apparently my audio volume.
Yeah, it seems like it's going, that we are getting a number of people. It sounds like it hasn't been like this from the start. I'm thinking more it's a Zoom issue.
I just moved the microphone closer. Anybody let me know if that sounds any better? I mean, I could start shouting as well, but I don't really want to do that to my voice right now. So let's see if anybody says anything in the chat here.
I'm going to check the audio settings.
Is anybody, I'm just going to speak here. If anybody, okay, so Giovanna says it sounds good to him. Okay, I guess we'll just go ahead here. So speak selection, we're able to select an area of text, just as we normally would by pressing down our finger on it to get that kind of blue box. And then we'll get the option, something will appear that allows us to then have that text read aloud. Now, I don't know how useful this is for people with a visual impairment, just on the basis that it can be hard to tell kind of whether you've selected text or what text you've selected, and so on and so forth. The next option I do like, though, this is speak screen. And with this option, we can use a gesture to have everything currently displayed on the screen read aloud to us. It's a two-finger gesture. We would swipe down from the top of the screen, and it's just going to start to read everything to us. So let's give it a try. 2 fingers.
Speak selection. A speak button will appear when you select text. Speak screen. Swipe down with 2 fingers from the top of the screen to hear the content of the screen. Speech controller, off, highlight content, off, highlight.
And hopefully you guys were able to hear that the iPad was just starting to speak aloud to us. Now, the problem with this capability for people with vision loss is it does bring up this kind of speech controller, which is basically an area using, Spencer has also mentioned back tap there. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, we can, basically a controller comes up which has some options for pausing and playing, forward winding and rewinding and things like that. And it can be quite hard to see for somebody with vision loss. Let's just bring it up again just so we can see that again.
Speak selection on.
And so it's in the middle of the screen, the speak controller at the moment. And there's buttons here, pause, play, forward wind and rewind. We can turn on speak. Oh, there we go, it disappeared. We can turn on speak by touch and change the speed of the read back as well. Now, all of that stuff is good and super useful, but for somebody with vision loss, you know, it can be quite hard to see. It will automatically minimize as well when it's not in use. So now it's minimized to the side of the screen and gone opaque. And to bring it back up again, we have to tap on it. So that's a bit of a pain that you have to control it through this control panel. Depending on your level of vision loss, you know, that might be a deal breaker. But don't forget, using the controller, we also have the speak on touch option as well. And so we can probably just use the controller for the most part. Now, my wife, who's dyslexic, she really likes this speech controller. And you can set the speech controller to be always on. So the next option down we have is for speech controller. And we can go ahead and set that to be always available on the edge of the screen. So whenever we want to read, we can go ahead and bring that up. It does give us access to that speak on touch. If we want to do it like that, we can go ahead.
The speech controller allows quick access to speak screen and speak on touch.
And tap on something to have it read aloud. And the speech controller has also got its own shortcuts as well. And so we can do things like double tapping on it to turn on speak on touch. And then obviously we can press on an area to have it read aloud. There's a long press that we can do to have it read all of the content on the screen and things like that. So it's kind of similar to the controller that we would use for the vision, but it's more related to speech. And so definitely for people with print disabilities, that can be super useful. I think that's all I have to talk about today.
Uh-oh. Speak on touch.
Looks like the iPad's got some more things to talk about though. That's all I've got to say for today. I hope that gave some people, you know, some ideas about what type of accessibility options are available. And there is a lot that you can look at and play around with. Now, obviously, we haven't covered some things today. We haven't covered VoiceOver. We haven't covered Siri. We will look at those in the next session. So Corey will go ahead and do those. And yes, if you tune in 2 weeks' time, same time, 11 o'clock Central, we will take a look at Siri, take a look at VoiceOver. And if anybody has any questions, or if anybody is thinking, you know, that this stuff looks good, but they could do with some personalized training, that is an option that we have. So you can get in touch with us. Best number to call is 414-615-0103. And we can do remote training. So if you're not, you know, within a distance of Milwaukee, then we can always do remote training with you. But if you wanted to come in to our facility in Milwaukee, then we'd be happy to see you and help you out as well. And we also do have videos available to our YouTube channel on, you know, iPhone, but also computer and assistive technology devices. And you can access those through youtube.com/infocus technology.
And we had a question regarding that. They asked, can this session be reviewed? And absolutely, if you head over to youtube.com/infocus technology, you'll find a playlist called Tech Talk Live, where all of these Tech Talk Live sessions get archived and posted. You can also view those for past ACVREP credit. And you'll also see a playlist for professional webinars where you can view our webinars and also view those for ACVREP credit as well.
Indeed.
So we will, like Luke mentioned, we'll be back in 2 weeks covering some of the things we may have not gotten to today with low vision, but for sure focusing on VoiceOver and more sort of the blindness side to iOS. And then the last piece we have here today is our closing code.
Well, yeah. I'm
So
intrigued.
what's that?
I'm intrigued about
Well,
what it's going to be.
So the closing code for today is cheese.
If you know what the opening code was, that sounds like an odd. Oh no! Oh, wait.
Yeah.
This is to do with the sandwich that I brought today. Yeah.
Before our session today, Luke told me about a sandwich that he brought.
Yeah, it's an English delicacy, let's say.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm going to put it in the chat here in just a second, and I'll stay up for a bit just so that everyone can see that. Again, you can go to vision-forward.org/webinars, and you'll find all the forms you need for your ACVREP credits.
Also, yeah, apologies for anybody who was having difficulties with the audio today, but we will work on that for the next time. And hopefully the audio recorded okay at least. So if you watch the video, then hopefully it will be better. All right, and with that, I think we are out.
We are out.
See you next time.
Everyone have a great one.